judges ready?
Yep. Yes.
Is the timer ready?
Yes.
Is the opposing team ready?
Yeah.
More than half a century has passed since the U.S. ended the military draft. The selective service system still requires males to register at 18, but that's it. Given the state of the world, the nation would be better prepared to reinstate conscription. Tom Tiemann. Good afternoon. My partner, Memphis Hall, and I, Tova Riley, stand for the resolution the United States government should reinstate the mandatory military draft. In order to make sure we are all on the same page for this debate round, let's define some key terms that we will hear and use in our round today. Observation 1, definitions. Definition 1, reinstate, to restore to a previous effective state. Definition 2, mandatory, required by a law or rule. Definition 3, draft, a selection from a pool. Source, Merriam-Webster. Now that we have covered our important terms, let's look at some major problems that are present in the status quo. Observation 2, harms. Harm 1, an all-volunteer force won't hold up against today's threats to our country. Quote, while the lights are all flashing red for America's armed forces, the Commission also finds that China is outpacing the United States and has largely negated the U.S. military advantage in the Western Pacific through continued military investment, while also noting that Russia is devoting a whopping 29% of its federal budget to its military as it wages its brutal invasion of Ukraine. Source, American Enterprise Institution. Summary, unless we reinstate the draft, America will not be able to hold up against today's threats with an all-volunteer force. Harm 2, the United States military is short of its recruiting goals. Quote, ever since the COVID-19 pandemic all but halted in-person recruiting in America's high schools, the U.S. military has fallen short of its recruiting goals. Source, Hoover Institution. Summary, military recruiting numbers are declining. Reinstating the draft would fix that. So, we can clearly see that there are some major problems in our current system. Let's see the solution in our plan. Observation 3, the plan. The affirmative team will be solving these problems in the following ways. Mandate. The U.S. government will reinstate the mandatory military draft. Agency, the Selective Service System, SSS. Enforcement, normal means, $250,000 in prison or 5 years in prison. Funding. U.S. will fund the draft with tariffs on countries, mainly China, that are top military threats. Now that we have heard our solution to the problems in the current system, let's look at the benefits that will come about once our plan is implemented. Observation 4, advantages. Advantage 1, our country will be able to withstand any global threat. Quote, after World War I, the draft was discontinued, but the selective service apprentice remained in place. In late 1940, President Roosevelt reinstated the draft. Largely through a draft, America eventually fielded a force of 14 million men, about 12.5% of our population. Simply put, we would have lost World War II without the draft. Source, Michael J.R. Impact. The United States would be ready and able to stand up against any rising threats. Advantage 2. The U.S. military will easily be able to meet its recruiting goals. Quote, from 1948 until 1973, during peace and conflict, men were drafted to fill vacancies in the armed forces which could not be filled through voluntary means. Source, selectiveservicesystem.gov. Impact. With a draft, the Army will have no trouble with getting the amount of recruits it needs. In conclusion, under our plan, the military would be well-staffed and trained for any potential threats to our country. Therefore, my partner, Memphis Hall, and I, Tova Riley, urge the judges to vote for the resolution. The United States government should reinstate the mandatory military draft. Thank you. I'm now ready for cross-examination.
Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Is the timer ready?
Yes. opposing team ready? Can I have a copy of your 1AC, please? Alright, so what is the credibility of your source for Advantage 2?
Advantage 2. The Selective Service System is an independent federal agency that has been a distinguished part of America's history for over a century, spanning eras of conflict and peacetime. 2023.
Wait, what's the source
Oh,
and the
so,
credibility?
yeah, it was Advantage, it was the Selective Service System.
And then what's the credibility?
The Selective Service, I just read it.
Okay. Alright, so you're stating that the all volunteer force can't have enough people, right?
The all volunteer force, yes.
So, but do we actually need like tons of men, or would we want better quality men?
Well, if a war broke out, we would have to have a lot of men in the military, or we would lose.
But is quality better than quantity, or is it the other way around?
Well, in World War One, it was we needed a lot of men because we would have to have a lot of men because we would have lost if we didn't reinstate the draft.
And with your plan, you said the funding would be tariffs on countries like China. Didn't just like a few months ago or more, there were a lot of tariffs put up, and did that make the people of the United States very happy, or what was your opinion on that?
Well, it would be tariffs for China, so we would be taxing China to be giving us stuff. So it wouldn't be our country, it would be China.
Yeah, but how much of the percent of goods that the United States gets comes from China?
A lot.
A lot. So how would that affect tons of businesses, especially smaller businesses? Even if they're somehow getting stuff from China, then it might not be cheap enough in America, and their business might have to shut down.
Well, we still are getting a lot of stuff from China, but it's just, do we want to be getting money when China sells us stuff so that we can put it into our military?
Well, yes, but that still doesn't answer the question of how are businesses going to get the things that they need for a cheap enough amount if they're not ordering them from China?
Time's up. This begins the 3.
Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Is the timer ready?
Yes.
Is the opposing team ready? The biggest increase in Americans' freedom in the 19th century was the end of slavery. The biggest increase in Americans' freedom in the last 3 decades of the 20th century was the end of the military conscription, a form of short-term slavery. Source, David R. Henderson. Good afternoon. My partner, Harvey Carter, and I, Eastman Riley, stand against the resolution. The military should reinstate the mandatory military draft. Observation 1. Definitions. The negative team accepts the affirmative's definitions. Now that we've addressed our important terms, let's look at some problems with the affirmative team's arguments. Harm 1. The affirmative team said that an all-volunteer force won't hold up against today's threats to our country. However, there is a way. Recognizing China as a primary competitor globally, modernizing U.S. forces for combined arms operation in the age of AI and autonomy, and securing U.S. military domains and space. Together, these 5 priorities form a comprehensive framework to protect the lives of U.S. citizens, intersects and values in an increasingly contested world. By embracing these priorities with clarity and commitment, The NDS can deliver a defense strategy that meets today's threats and secures the United States' future. Summary: there are much safer and efficient ways to deal with these problems. Harm 2. The affirmative team said the U.S. military is short of recruiting goals. However, we are crushing recruiting goals. Quote, you wouldn't have a better army, you just have more people. Summary, there will only be more people, not better. Observation 3, plan. The cost of training a single service member is pretty high already. Spending tons of money training people who don't want to be there only to have most of them leave the service as soon as humanly possible is just not worth it, on top of the terror. Now let's look at the advantages brought by the affirmative team. Observation 4, advantages. The affirmative team said, our country will be able to withstand any global threat. But we can already withstand them, and we are doing a great job. But the sincere interest in helping our military and instilling a sense of service to our country by reinstating the draft is wrong-headed. We don't need a draft to spread the pain of military service among the various social and economic groups. Advantage 2. The affirmative team said the U.S. military will easily be able to meet its recruiting goals. But if there are too many insufficiently trained soldiers hitting the battlefield, then this is a disadvantage, compromises the readiness status of the armed forces. In conclusion, it is clear that reinstating a mandatory military draft would be unnecessary for our nation and could impose significant detreatment on America. Therefore, my partner Harvey Carter and I, Issa Mae Riley, urge the judges to vote against the resolution. The U.S. military should not reinstate the mandatory military draft. Thank you. I'm now ready for the cross-examination. Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Is the timer ready?
Yes.
Is the opposing team ready?
Yeah.
Opposing team ready?
Yes.
Okay. You said, so in harm 1, you said that there was going to be there's AI in China for the military. They're using more sources like AI. I think this quote said that we could use AI as a replacement and for.
So like what kind of AI and how would that work in the military?
So we could use AI as to send over and not put a human soul in danger.
But how would that make their army, like, how would that work?
We could replace some of the people
With what?
with AI.
What kind of AI?
Just normal government AI.
Okay. You said harm 2, you said we were crushing recruiting goals. And how, like, where does it say that we were crushing recruiting goals? Like, define crushing, like define crushing.
Crushing is not being and crushing is not having a bad army. So it's not bad.
Okay, so you're saying that our army is not, that we have a lot of soldiers in the military?
I think it's a better decision than a draft.
What was your credibility, or what was your source for Advantage 1?
Source: the national interest.
What was your credibility?
National interest.
What is the credibility for Harm 1?
Clementine G. Sterling Daniels.
When was it published?
2025. July 3rd.
What was the credibility for Harm 1?
Yeah, Clementine G. Sterling
Can you read about it?
is a non-resident senior fellow in the Forward Defense Initiative of the Atlantic Council's Scout Crop Center for Strategy and Security. Prior to launching the Forward Defense Program at the Atlantic Council, Sterling Daniels served as the Deputy Director. Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Is the timer ready? Yes. Is the opposing team ready?
Yes.
Yes. Quote, "To be prepared for war is one of the most effectual means of preserving peace." George Washington. Good morning. My partner, Tova Riley, and I, Memphis Hall, stand for the resolution. The United States government should reinstate the mandatory military draft. In order to make sure we are all on the same page for this debate round, let's define some key terms that we will hear and use in our round today. Observation 1, definitions. We would like to thank the negative team for accepting our definitions. Now that we have agreed on our important terms, let's review some major problems that are present in the status quo. Observation 2, harms. Harm 1. The negative team said that there is a safer way to deal with threats. However, we believe that the growing worldwide threats to our country is a more serious problem. Quote, "With global threats only growing stronger, the U.S. needs both a stronger, larger military force and a stronger connection between American citizens and national service." Source: Britannica. Summary: we need to prepare for the strengthening of global threats. Harm 2. The negative team said that we are crushing recruiting goals and that quality is better than quantity. However, we believe that the military is struggling to recruit the required amount of people it needs, and that is a more serious problem. Quote, "Nearly 1/4 of soldiers recruited since 2022 have failed to complete their initial contracts, according to internal Army data reviewed by military.com. While the Army's recruiting totals look solid on paper, a high dropout rate raises serious doubts about whether those numbers are an accurate portrayal of how well the service is manned." Source: Steve Bainan, military.com. Summary: the U.S. military is struggling to recruit the amount of soldiers it needs. So we can clearly see that there are some major problems in our current system. Let's see the solution in our plan. Mandate: the U.S. government will reinstate the mandatory military draft. Agency: the Selective Service System, SSS. Enforcement: normal means $250,000 or 5 years in prison. Funding: the U.S. will fund the draft with tariffs on countries, mainly China, that are top military threats. Now that we have heard our solution to the problems in the current system, let's look at the benefits that will come about once our plan is implemented. Observation 4, advantages. Advantage 1. The negative team said that we can already withstand threats and that forcing people to join would take away the sense of joining and would spread the pain of having to join. However, we believe that ensuring that America is prepared to stand up against threats is more important. Quote, "A larger trained manpower pool ensures that in a time of national emergency,
The military can rapidly expand to meet threats. Voluntary forces alone may be insufficient in extreme contingencies. Source: H.R. McMaster. Impact: having a draft would allow America to be prepared for all the rising threats. Advantage 2. The negative team said that we would only have a bunch of untrained people if we were to reinstate the draft. However, we believe that the military's lack of manpower is more important. Quote, the World War II draft regime remains the most significant, both in scale and precedence. Out of over 16 million Americans who served, 10 million, 60.6%, were draftees. Source: Army University Press. Impact: like in the past, a draft would allow the military to fill all of its vacancies. In conclusion, while the negative team brought up some interesting points, we believe that under our plan, the United States military would no longer struggle with recruiting shortfalls and would be prepared to withstand global threats. Therefore, my partner, Tova Riley, and I, Memphis Hall, urge the judges to vote for the resolution. The United States government should reinstate the mandatory military draft. Thank you. I am now ready for cross-examination.
Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Is the timer ready?
Yes.
Is the opposing team ready?
Yes.
Can I hear your credibility for harm 1?
Yes. Which one is it? Harm 1 was Britannica, and Britannica are researchers, editors, technologists, designers, and quizmasters united in their community to tell stories, to teach, and to never lose sight of the fact that learning is one epic lifelong journey.
And what year was it published?
July 8th, 2025.
Credibility for harm 2?
Harm 2 was Steve Bannon Military.com. Steve Bannon was a reporter for Military.com based out of the Washington, D.C. area, whose detailed investigations have covered urgent issues impacting soldiers. He has an extensive background in covering senior military leadership conduct, the Pentagon's recruiting struggles, and extraneous organizations.
So you said quality was over quantity in harm 2, right?
I said that's what you said.
Okay. And you don't believe that's true?
No, I do not.
Well, what do you think would happen if we had a big army of untrained teenagers?
Well, they would be going through conscription, and they would be trained, so they would have some experience. And I think just sheer numbers can sometimes be more than a few well-trained people.
But you also said that China is a rising threat.
Yes, China is very bad.
And if we need to call war immediately, we won't have enough time to train those teenagers.
But having a bunch of soldiers in training for backup is better than not having soldiers at all.
What is your credibility for advantage 1?
Ability for advantage 1. That was H.R. McMaster. H.R. McMaster, former U.S. National Security Advisor, in interviews about military readiness.
And published date?
September 23rd, 2020.
And credibility for advantage 2?
Advantage 2 was Army University Press. The U.S. Army's premier multimedia organization focuses on advancing the ideas and insights military professionals need to lead and succeed.
And published date?
2024.
And do you think if you think that the army was trying to train those teenagers, it would be chaotic during wartime?
I don't think it would be chaotic necessarily, but I think it would be important to have that reserve of people being trained rather than not having anyone once the already trained volunteers are done.
3-minute prep period begins.
Are the judges ready?
Yes.
Yes.
Is the timer ready?
Yes.
Is the opposing team ready?
Yes.
Our battle lines for the Continental Service were some time ago so far filled as rendered the recommendation of a draft for the militia hardly requisite, and the more so as the country it ever was the most unpopular, unpredictable thing that could be attempted. Our people, even under the monarchical government, had learned to consider it as the last of all oppressions. Source, Thomas Jefferson. Good afternoon, my partner, Issa Mae Riley, and I, Harvey Carter, stand against the resolution that the U.S. military should reinstate the mandatory military draft. Observation 1, definition. The negative team accepts the affirmative definitions. Now that we have agreed on our important terms, let's look at some problems with the affirmative team's argument. Observation 2, harms. Harm 1. The affirmative team said that the U.S. can't withstand threats with an all-volunteer force, and that they need a draft to meet that. However, American troops are stationed in over 80 countries worldwide. Source, Source. A former Boston Globe reporter. Notification, book author. Summary. There are plenty of, we have enough bodies to withstand threats, and a draft is unneeded because it will cause corruption and make people, I guess, mad. Harm 2. The affirmative team says that the affirmative team says that start of recruiting goals. However, recruiting more people is limiting the freedom of young men. And quote, the biggest increase in Americans' freedom in the 19th century is the end of slavery. Biggest increase in America's freedom in the last 3 decades of the 20th century was that the end of the military conscription, a form of short-term slavery. Source, David R. Henderson. Summary. Drafting more humans to meet recruiting goals will cause the freedom of young people to be less, and taking away freedom is that's basically the United States motto. Harm 2. We can clearly see that the harms raised by the affirmative team are not major issues. Observation 3, the plan. The affirmative team's plan will not work because having tariffs on countries, even if they are against us, will not make the citizens of the United States happy, because they will have to spend more buying things from other places and change the places that they're buying goods from. Now let's look at the advantages brought up by the affirmative team. Observation 4, advantages. Advantage 1, the affirmative team says the U.S. will be able to withstand any threats when they have the draft. I don't think. We need a draft to withstand threats. We do not need a draft to withstand threats. Quote. But the sincere interest of helping our military and instilling the sense of service to our country by raising the draft is wrong-headed. We don't need a draft to spread pain of military service among various social economic groups. Source: award-winning focus on defense issues. Hardware policy. The U.S. politics. Summary. At the end of all evidence points to the obvious conclusion to pursue the healthy, safe, and thriving country. Therefore, my partner, Issa Mae Riley, and I, Harvey Carter, urge the judges to vote against the resolution that the U.S. should reinstate the mandatory military draft. Thank you. I'm not ready for cross-examination.
The judges ready? Is the timer ready?
Yes.
The opposing team. Okay. So, let's see. You read a quote during your part one that said that there are troops stationed all over the country. How do you know how many people are in those troops? Do you know? How large are those troops?
How large are those troops? The quote doesn't state, but having troops in other countries states that we have power. Otherwise, if we didn't have enough troops, then we wouldn't be able to put troops in other countries.
Okay, so wouldn't troops being in other countries mean that our country is more vulnerable and we might want more soldiers to defend it?
Well, if we have troops in other countries, I think that the people that are in charge of the military of the United States, I don't think that they would just send troops to other countries when we don't have anything to defend our own. They've been trained in military.
Couldn't they say the same thing about us having troops in their countries?
What?
You said that they wouldn't have any reason to send troops to our countries, correct? Is that what you said?
No.
Oh, okay. What did you say? Will you repeat what you said?
Alright, so so you said that troops in other countries would cause our country to be more vulnerable because we wouldn't have as many troops in our country. Well, I think that we would have enough troops to do that because I don't know the exact number that we have in the US, but there are people that are in charge of the military that's their job. They've been doing that for their whole life. I think that they would be they'd have a good thought about that.
And you said, I think that we will have enough people here to, do you know for sure, or is that just something that you're thinking and hoping?
Well, no, I'm not just hoping. I kind of have faith in the people that are in charge of our military. I don't think that they would just leave our country completely vulnerable. Because I'm pretty sure they know what they're talking about.
Okay. And then what is the date of when that quote was published, the Harmon quote?
Harmon. It was published November 2nd, 2025.
Okay, so you said that recruiting young people would make them, it would take away part of their life if you recruited them, correct?
Yes, in recruiting them, it's taking away parts of their life.
So you don't think that the young people of our country, you think that they don't need to?
Please make sure you don't discuss it with any other judges and make your own